if you want something bad enough, you'll figure out a way to make it happen. And don't be afraid to make it happen. A lot of people, I think, they say that fear kills more dreams than failure does. And I believe that. So don't be afraid to succeed. Believe in yourself and go for it.
Ricardo the Bully
Hey guys, welcome back to Smoke MMA. Today, you're probably wondering where I am, seeing this as this is not a Zoom call. Well, today I'm joined by UFC veteran Ricardo Lamas. How's it going today, Mr. Lamas?
Going good, man. How you doing?
I'm doing very good. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to do this interview with me. I really do appreciate it.
No problem, man. Anytime.
So I want to get right on into it. And so, looking back at your career, what got you involved in MMA? What made you think that you wanted to do this as a career?
As a kid, I was always interested in martial arts. It came from my love of old Bruce Lee movies and stuff like that, and there's a lot of older movies that kind of molded my loving for martial arts, from all the Jean-Claude Van Damme movies back in the 90s, Kickboxer, Bloodsport, Last Dragon. Some of them were super cheesy, but got me really interested in doing martial arts. So I kind of dabbled a little bit here and there as a kid with karate and taekwondo. Taekwondo I got a little more serious, and I did that. I almost got a black belt in it, but
oh really?
Yeah. And then an older brother of mine started wrestling in high school, which got me involved in that sport. And a little bit right before around that time, another older brother of mine. I'm the youngest of 6, by the way, so I might say another older brother. So I got 5 older brothers. So another one.
Always the fun family.
Yeah, exactly. That might be another reason why I became a fighter. The youngest one, always getting picked on by my older brothers, kind of gave me that fighting will. But anyways, another one brought home one of the very first events of the UFC.
Oh, really?
Yeah, on VHS tape. And this was back when it was no holds barred, no gloves, no weight classes, nothing like that. So he popped that in the VHS, and when I saw it, I was just hooked on it. So ever since I was a kid, I was probably 10, 11 years old when I saw that tape. And I was a kid of kind of small stature. I was always the smallest one in my class. And, I saw Hoist Gracie up there, a smaller guy beating up on all these bigger guys. So I was, drawn to that immediately.
Yeah.
So, after that, I'd be hanging out with my friends. We'd be lifting weights in my basement, watching UFC on the TV. And I'd always tell them, you'll see me in there one day. And so just wrestled through high school, wrestled through college. And met somebody at the job that I was working at. I was a personal trainer who had a boxing and Muay Thai background.
Yeah.
And I told him about how I wanted to fight. And at the time, he was kind of splitting off and opening up his own place and told me to come by and kind of learn the stand-up game from him. And that's kind of where it all started from.
Well, it seems like you've come a long way since then, obviously, now owning a gym. So, kind of a whole-on, a transformation from being the guy going to, your friends' gyms to now owning a gym. But, backtracking a little bit to how you were talking about wrestling, you were a collegiate wrestler throughout high school and college. How would you say that helped your game in MMA?
I wouldn't be where I'm at if it wasn't for the sport of wrestling. It really taught me work ethic and how to excel in something that I want to get good at. Because with a sport like wrestling, it's you're on a team, you're with a team, but when you're out on the mat, you're by yourself. So it's as much of an individual sport as it is a team sport. So if you don't put in the work, and if you don't bust your ass training and getting better, it's going to show out there. And you have nobody to blame but yourself. So you could apply that to literally anything in life. So that if it wasn't for the sport of wrestling, I don't think I'd be where I'm at today.
Oh, yeah. A lot of people I've interviewed a couple wrestlers, and they all go, the boxing, the stand-up, those practices are always kind of easy. But then once you get to the wrestling practices, those are the hardest practices of the week. What do you think of that? Would you agree, saying it's one of the hardest?
I agree 100%. Wrestling, you think about a match and you say, a wrestling match in high school was only 6 minutes long. And you're like, oh, that's not that bad. I've come out of a wrestling match more tired than I have in probably any one of my fights. Just because in a wrestling match, it's just constant pressure on your opponent. There's you can't sit back and relax. If you sit back and relax, you just start getting hit for stalling, and then they start awarding your opponent points.
Oh, yeah.
So it's like 2 rams constantly butting heads the whole time. So 6 minutes doesn't sound like a long time, but try wrestling hard for 6 minutes. I guarantee you'll be puking on the side of the mat before it's over.
Yeah, I do wrestling at my high school, and our coach before every match goes, if you're not out there coming back with your hands in your head and breathing like till your lungs collapse, then you're doing it wrong.
That's
These
right.
should be the 6 hardest minutes of your life. And in a couple of my matches, they've gone for 7-8 minutes because, going out of
Overtime.
bounds, overtime.
Yep.
And you always want to be the first to that takedown. So, getting right on that whistle, getting right to the takedown, that's also pretty hard. Just, shaking the hand, getting on the mat. And then right when that whistle blows, you're going head-to-head with the guy for 6 minutes. And
Yep.
if you lose, you lose for the team. And if you win, you win for the team.
Yep.
And as much as it is like a one-on-one sport, like you said, you got to be focusing on the team.
That's
'Cause
right.
You want to have your team's best interest in mind, winning a match, because those 6 points, those 3 points, those 5 points, however many points you get from winning, that's going to help your team win, and that's going to help you win and move on in life
Exactly.
as well.
That's right.
So now moving on a little bit, looking at your UFC career, what would you say was your most fun fight?
Most fun fight. There was a lot that I really enjoyed. I think one that I get remembered for a lot was my fight with Max Holloway.
Yeah.
And we were kind of going at it back and forth. I mean, he was leading the fight. He was winning on points. But we were always in each other's face. We were getting into really good exchanges.
Oh, yeah.
And then the last 10 seconds is kind of what everybody talks about, where the clapper sounded. He pointed to the ground. I threw my hands up, and we just decided to throw it out for the last 10.
Oh, yeah.
So as far as a fun fight, one like that is one that I remember because it's one that still comes up to this day. On Instagram or whatever, I'll get tagged in a video those last 10 seconds at least 3 times a week. So it's something that kind of went down in MMA history, and I enjoy being a part of it.
So, what was going through your head when he did point to the center of the octagon?
That's what if you rewatch the fight, so going into the third round, I knew I was down on the cards. I was like, I got to make something happen. I gotta get a knockout. So about halfway through that last round, I keep motioning with my hands, like get him to come in, let's go, stop backing up, and then at the end, he even said in his post-fight interview, he said that I told him telepathically that I wanted to throw down.
Oh yeah.
So that's when he pointed to the ground, and I was like, that's what I'm waiting for. Let's go, and then we just started swinging.
Oh yeah. And a lot of fighters recently we've seen a lot of wars, Gilbert Burns versus Hamza and Michael Chandler versus Justin Gaethje. Those are a couple that come to mind. Well, in their post-fight interviews, they were going into their fight, they had already agreed without saying any words that they were going to throw down until one man was left standing. So would you say that was kind of what you and Max had, where it's not a verbal exchange, but a mental exchange where you guys both knew what was about to happen and you guys both agreed to it?
Yeah, I just think that's the kind of fighter we both are. You look at any one of Max's fights, and he's always going out there and giving his all, and I'm the same. So if you put 2 guys like that together in a cage, it's going to be action-packed no matter what.
Bulls going head-to-head, locking
right.
horns.
Yeah.
So now we talked about what your most fun fight was. What was your hardest fight? Where you walked out of it going, God damn, that was a hard fight, or the hardest training going into a fight?
Probably my title fight, against Jose Aldo. That was back when he was, still pretty much in his prime. He was on top at the featherweight division.
Back when he was the king of Rio.
That's right. And hardest camp, that was a really long camp. They give me a lot more notice for a title fight, obviously. And so I split up my camps between, I trained here in Chicago and I trained in Miami as well. So I was going back and forth. I went down early to Miami, came back a little bit for the holidays, then went back again to finish camp because I fought right at the beginning of February.
Yeah.
So I was training throughout that holiday season. So that was a really long camp, a really tough camp. And the fight was hard, obviously because the disappointment in myself for not being able to pull out the win. I lost by decision, but just after the fight, that's the one that you think about the most, what you should have done, during the fight.
Yeah. That's always the hardest part, is the mental battle with yourself before and after, because everyone says your hardest enemy is you're your own worst enemy.
100%.
So how do you get over that when getting into an octagon, being I have to not fight this guy, but I've also got to fight myself, knowing what I did in training camp and what else I could have done to prepare, and then getting into the octagon?
I think a lot of it is getting in there and being comfortable with that whole process. There's points in fight week where you get very stressed out leading up, especially the night before, the day of the fight. You're just constantly thinking about what the outcome might be because you don't know. This is a fight and anything can happen. So I think just accepting that process as kind of a natural human reaction to what's about to occur, right?
Yeah.
You're about to be locked in a cage with another guy who's been training for 8 weeks that wants to hurt you.
Yeah.
Right? There's going to be a lot of feelings that come along with that. Whether you're nervous about getting hurt or injured, whether you're nervous about losing in front of your family and friends, it's never a fear of the other guy. At least for me, it's never been a fear of the guy that I'm fighting. It's more of a fear of myself not performing to my best ability.
Yeah.
So letting that process through your head, accepting it, and just knowing that it's a natural part of this journey that you're on, I think helps the most. I think once you accept it and learn how to control it and not let you freeze up inside the octagon, you're good to go.
So backtracking a little bit to when you were saying that you would train in Miami and then you come back and train in Chicago, what did you take from both of those two gyms that you would be training at to build your overall fight game, to make you a one complete fighter?
Yeah, going out and training in Miami is what really took my career to the next level. When I first started out, I was strictly training here in Chicago, around the area. I was going to about 4 different gyms.
Yeah.
So I'd go to one for my stand-up, I'd go to one for my jiu-jitsu, I'd go to another one for my wrestling. Sometimes I travel out to the city to spar boxing at some of the boxing gyms out there. So it was just a lot of running around, and it made training camps just exhausting.
Yeah.
So for one of my fights, it was my 3rd fight in the WEC against James Krause. I was getting ready for that. The fight was in November. It was around October at the time, and that's right around the time that the weather starts to break here in Chicago and it starts to get cold. So my trainer at the time was like, man, let's go train in Miami, get out of this cold, go train in nice weather, run on the beach, do all that stuff. And I was like, yeah, let's go, because my family had a place in North Miami Beach at the time, so I had a place to go stay. My trainer had a place to stay too, and he had a friend that was living down there who was training at this gym, MMA Masters, and he was like, yo, if you guys have a gym that you want to come train at, I got you. So we went, we show up late to practice. They've been going for like an hour at least already, because it was sparring time, and we always sparred at the end of practice. We end practice with sparring. So I get to the gym. One guy's in the cage. It's like their best guy on the team, Luis Palomino, who turned out to be, he's one of my best friends. He's actually bare knuckle world champion right now, lightweight
really?
division. Yep. And so he's in the cage, and they're like, you're going to spar. They call him Baboon. Everybody knows him as Baboon. Nobody calls him Lewis. So like, you're going to spar with Baboon. I'm like, who's Baboon? I think they're going to throw me in the cage with an ape or something. So I go in the cage, not warmed up at all, and bell rings. He comes straight out, ping, 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 lights me up.
Jesus.
You know what I mean? And I'm like, screw this, going for a takedown. Anyways, it was like I'd never been pushed like that in sparring before, right? And then a couple days later, I go back to the gym. And then I start rolling with my sensei Daniel Valverde.
Yeah.
And he is just lighting me up. I thought I had like a flu for like a month afterwards, because he choked me so many times. My throat was so sore. But I was like, yo, this is where I need to be. I went in there and got my ass kicked by everybody. So I was like, I need to keep coming back, because that's gonna, iron sharpens iron type thing. So I made that a part of my camp. The following fight, I carved out a month of my time and went down and trained for a month. Ended up getting like the first real knockout of my career against Bendy Casimir. I hit him with a flying knee. His mouthpiece went flying out of the octagon.
Yeah.
So right away I saw the improvements. And then every fight after that, just, I was a straight wrestler when I started fighting. And going to MMA Masters really rounded me out and made me like a complete fighter. I got my black belt from Daniel Valverde in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and my stand-up just went up levels, from being down there. So it was probably the best decision that I made for training in the sport of MMA is really branching out and going somewhere else, getting out of my comfort zone and learning from different people.
Yeah, like everyone says that, like talking about how like his name was Baboon, you had no clue. My cousin Louie, who's like behind the camera, he trains at Maximus, and so they have a bunch of fighters. And I was at one of their events the other day, and they're all in the crowd. They're screaming out their nicknames.
Yeah.
They're like, "Go Squeeble!" I'm like, "What? What the hell is a Squeeble?"
Squeeble.
Smeagol, yeah.
Smeagol. Okay,
so he's in. I'm like, "My precious." Like, I'm like, "What are you talking about?"
Looks can be deceiving, man.
Oh,
That's what I've learned about fighters is you can look at someone and think they're nothing, and, and they'll rip your head off. So
yeah, there was
don't judge a book by its cover.
A couple guys who got in that ring, and I'm like, this guy's like 10-2.
Yeah.
And then he goes in there, and he lands his head kick on the dude. The dude goes like flying. I'm like, what the hell is going on? But yeah, no, that's nuts.
Yeah.
But then backtracking again to like how you were talking about the WEC, you were on the WEC roster before the UFC absorbed them. What was going through your head when the UFC absorbed the WEC?
That my dreams were kind of coming to fruition. I had felt very satisfied with where I was at in the WEC. The WEC was actually an organization that I watched just as much, if not more, than the UFC at the time when they came out and they were popular. Like, the Tap Out show was getting guys for the WEC and all that stuff. So Uriah Faber was kind of like the poster boy of the WEC back when I was watching it.
Yep.
He was probably one of my favorite fighters when I started my MMA career. Just one that I kind of wanted to emulate and be like because he came from a wrestling background, but he was very well rounded too. So I loved the WEC. I watched it all the time. Right before I got in the WC, I tried out for the Ultimate Fighter. I made it all the way through to the interviews, but didn't get chosen. So I was kind of bummed by that. Had a fight right after that. And then a couple months later after that fight, I got a call on 4 days' notice to fight Bart Palashevsky, who was, I don't know if you know much about him, but he's a fighter that's from the area, from Crystal Lake.
Yeah.
He's been in the MMA game for a long time. He used to fight for another organization called the IFL, which was like a team versus team type MMA organization. So he had like over 40 fights. I had 6 professional fights on my record.
So kind of like a veteran versus like a new guy.
And co-main event spot. So I had to take it and took it on 4 days notice. Went out to Corpus Christi, Texas, and I won.
Oh, nice.
So just kind of announced to everybody that I'm here now. You know.
So speaking of how like you looked up to Uriah Faber, what was it like? Because in your title fight against Jose Aldo, weren't you on like you were the co-main to like I'm pretty sure it was Dominic Cruz versus Uriah Faber.
It was Barral.
Oh,
Barral
right,
versus
Barral.
Faber.
Yeah.
Henan Barral. So yeah, and even before that, like that first fight in the WC, like I said, like so after the fight, pretty much everybody ends up back at the hotel, and all the fighters just kind of hang out in the lobby for a while before they go out or do whatever. So right after that fight, I'm on cloud 9 because I just won, and then I'm meeting like all my favorite fighters. You know, I ran into Uriah Faber, took a picture with him, all these other fighters that I watched on TV, and it was just like a very surreal moment because now I was one of those fighters, you know. So it was
like sort of like you made it to the big leagues.
Yeah. So and at the time, WC was owned by Zuffa. So Dana White owned the WC at that time. I think they had just acquired it before I got in there. So I was on, like, it's the same contract that they give you. It's a Zuffa contract.
Yeah.
So I was contracted by Dana and all of them, so I felt like I had already made it. But then when the UFC absorbed the WEC, because at the time, you know, I don't know if other people know, but before 170 pounds used to be the lightest weight class that the UFC had.
Really?
Right? Yeah. And then they added a 155. But they didn't have a featherweight or a bantamweight or a flyweight division. They didn't have that until they absorbed all of the WEC in there. So finally going in there and switching those blue gloves to those black gloves that say UFC on them, I felt like, you know, I achieved my dream before, but now it's like now it's legit. Now it's real.
It's awesome. Yeah. So one more question about like looking back at your career. What win was like? Would you consider your best win? And like when be like, oh, that win aged well. That was my favorite win. That was my best win. Like, what win would you say?
There's a few, man. You know, there's a lot of wins that kind of hold special meaning to me.
Yeah.
You know, 3 that I'll talk about is one is my UFC debut because obviously it's my first fight in the UFC. I'm super nervous. You always hear about these guys that get signed to the UFC. They lose their first fight or their first 2 fights and they get cut. So there's a lot of pressure for that first fight to go in there and perform, especially because I was actually coming off a loss from the WC, my last WC fight. So there's a lot of pressure. I dropped to a new weight class. I went from lightweight to featherweight. And I ended up getting a TKO in the first round. So it was just a great performance to put on my first time in the UFC. Moving forward after that, you know, I was racking up some wins. And then I went up against... you know, right after my UFC debut, I fought Cub Swanson, submitted Cub Swanson. After that, they put me up against Hatsu Hiyoki, which was like this whiz from Japan. You know, he was like a European champion. They brought him in to fight me. He was supposed to fight Aldo, but he turned it down. Gave him to me. I beat him. Then after that, I get another #1 contender, Eric Koch, who trained with Anthony Pettis up in Wisconsin, who was actually signed to fight Aldo, but then one of them got injured, so the fight got scrapped, and they gave him to me again. But that fight, this is the one that I'm talking about, was at the United Center in Chicago. So this was my first fight in the big show in my hometown, right at home. So all my friends and family were there, and I demolished him in the second round. Just broke his face open with elbows, and blood was flying everywhere. So that's I felt kind of bad after the fight, but that's another big win that I kind of remember a lot just because it was my first fight here at home. And then UFC 180. So they used I was one of the fighters that used a lot to kind of break into the Latin American market
Yeah.
because I'm half Mexican and half Cuban.
Yeah.
So they sent me down to Mexico a few times on like press tours to promote the event. And I was on the main card fighting Dennis Bermudez, who was on a 7-fight win streak at the time in the featherweight division, and put that to an end in the first round and dropped him and submitted him. So just being, I just remember like the crowd down there in Mexico really accepted me kind of as like, you know, as if I was born there.
Exactly.
But, it was awesome. So those 3 fights hold a lot of special meaning to me, but like every single win is, it's like asking who your favorite kid is almost, you know.
I mean, but every parent kind of has a favorite kid.
Yeah, right. Are you
Like
the favorite then?
Like my dad likes to say I'm not the favorite,
Right, but he's just kind of like
but you
reverse
know,
psychology.
you can't really say it in front of the other.
Exactly.
Too.
I got you.
So then, how did you know it was time to retire? Like how did you know like at the end of your career that was it, that it was time to hang them up?
It was something that I was kind of wrestling with for a couple of years actually towards the end. I remember just things change, you know. When I started fighting, I was single. I didn't have a family. Then I found my now wife, you know, started dating her, got serious with her. We got married. We have 3 kids now. And just like I said, you know, I would train in Miami and I lived here.
Yeah.
When my kids were little, they would come with me sometimes, right?
Yeah.
They come with me to
So
train
that's like
in Miami.
a lot of time away from them.
Exactly. So that, like, it became very stressful to do camps away from my family and not see my kids for a whole month, stuff like that. And then, like, every fight, I remember this was a couple years before I even retired, but it was my fight against Jason Knight. And it was the day of the fight, and I usually I don't like to sit around in the hotel room because that's when you start to kind of think too much.
Yeah, that's when you get in your head.
Yes, that's when you get in your head. So I get, you know, we go for a walk, we go get some coffee or something like that, and we're walking around. It was in California, so we're walking around the area there, and I'm telling her, I'm like, hey, listen, if I have a real good performance tonight, I think I might hang it up. You know, I always wanted to end my career on a good note.
Yeah.
And, you know, she kind of blew it off, like, no, whatever. But so, like, it's just instances like that where I'm thinking about it. I was thinking about it for a few years. Suffered a couple tough losses after that. Had my jaw fractured in 2 places the fight before my last fight. And that was one where, you know, there was no way I was going to end my career on that note.
Yeah.
So I was like, I got to come back from this. I got to give a good showing. I got to prove to everybody that, you know, I'm still a good fighter. I'm still who I've always been. So after that fight, after fracturing my jaw, that was kind of my main goal. Come back, get a great win. So in my last fight, I fought Bill Algeo. It was a back-and-forth fight. We got fight of the night.
Yep.
And it was just a feeling inside me, you know. And I gave a speech, you know, being half Cuban. My father is a political exile from Cuba, so I kind of gave a speech to the people of Cuba that kind of went viral around the Cuban-American community and in Cuba as well.
Yeah.
And it was just kind of like everything. It was almost the only thing that would have made it 100% perfect if it wasn't an empty arena that I retired in. Because of COVID, we fought at the Apex, and there was I didn't even know that it was such a good fight because there was no reaction. You know what I mean? I could hear the commentators a little bit, but when you're involved in a good fight, like my fight with Max, you hear the crowd really getting into it.
They go up, they stand up, they start clapping, everything.
Yeah, so like after that fight, I get out and all the commentators are telling me like, that was such a good fight, dude. And I was like, I didn't even know, you know, I was just sitting there fighting. So
You sure it was?
Yeah. So we ended up getting fight of the night, and you know, I felt like it was the perfect time to hang up my gloves. And if I want to be remembered anyway, it's in a fight like that.
Well, like seeing as like you retired, looking back at like now the current state of the featherweight division, what's your opinion of it? Like, how has it changed since your last fight in it? Yeah, even though your last fight was only 3 years ago now. Like, what has changed in it? Like, looking back, like now looking at it, what is your opinion of this current state of the division?
It's just, you know, a new wave of new fighters, new faces that are coming up and building their own names now. It happens all the time. You know, new generations of fighters come up, and these guys are great. They're all killers. I still enjoy watching all the fights and all the events. Alexander Volkanovski just impresses me every time he steps into the octagon. His last fight against Korean Zombie, I did not think it was going to be that easy for him. Like, I thought he was going to win, but I mean, he just made it look easy. So he's one of those guys that he's still young, and it just shows because he's improving every time he steps out there.
Yeah, I agree. Like, it seems like a lot of different guys have like made their ways up the rankings. Like Arnold Allen, he had a standout performance in his last fight against Dan Hooker.
Yep.
Calvin Kattar against Giga Chikadze. Like all these guys, who like 2 years ago no one would have known their name. They like built their way up now, and like that's always cool to see.
Yeah.
Like, the next generation of fighters.
Yeah, us old guys always got to hand the torches off to the young guys.
Oh yeah. My last question for you, like about your career, is like, what is one piece of advice you'd give to someone like starting their own rise to glory?
Who's starting their own what?
Who's starting their own rise to glory? Like, what would you give advice to them?
Self-belief and not listening to the critics out there.
Yeah.
You know, there are a lot of people. You know, even when I was a little kid, there were a lot of people who said that, you know, I wouldn't do it. But believing in yourself and never giving up on your dreams, like if you want something bad enough, you'll figure out a way to make it happen. And don't be afraid to make it happen. A lot of people, I think, you know, they say that fear kills more dreams than failure does.
Yeah.
And I believe that. So don't be afraid to succeed. Believe in yourself and go for it.
Yeah. Like Louis, how he always tells me, like if I'm feeling nervous about like something like an interview or like a wrestling match or something, he goes, now look, it's gonna go one of two ways. You're either gonna win in spectacular fashion, or you're never gonna find out because you didn't do it right.
That's right.
So you better like put all your effort into it before you don't get the chance to put all your effort into it. So that's kind of how I'm here today with you doing this interview inside the Octagon, which has always been something that I've always wanted to do, an interview in the Octagon. It's always awesome. But yeah, so that's a very good piece of advice. And I'd like to transition now from questions about you to questions about the current state of MMA, like things that are going on in the news of like the UFC, like of MMA in general, and like get your opinion on it, like what people are saying, and then what you think. So my first thing is, what's your opinion on open scoring? Because there's been a lot of controversy recently with Holly Holm versus Caitlin Vieira, and a lot of fights where the fighters are saying if they would have known the score, they would have done something differently. So what's your opinion on open scoring?
I don't think the problem should be open scoring. I think that we need to have better judges in the sport of MMA. We have these guys that are judging these sports that have never been in a fight in their life, you know, and they don't understand the ground game. They don't understand the intricacies of the entire sport of what's going on, right? So I think they get it wrong a lot of the time.
Yeah.
I think they should hire ex-fighters to be judges in these fights.
Yeah.
Open scoring I don't think is going to help that much. I think if anything, it may hinder some performances because if a guy knows that he's up 2-0 going into that third round, he may try and coast it, you know, and we may see that a lot. Just like in a wrestling match, like you got a minute winding down in the clock, you're up by a point, what are you going to do? You're not going to engage. You're going to circle around the mat. You're going to defend.
You're going to do
you know
just
what
enough
I mean?
to not
Because you're going to secure the win,
yeah.
right? So I think listen, if you're in the fight, you know if you're winning or losing.
Exactly.
If it's a tight fight, then fight your ass off. You know, finish it. The point of the fight is to finish the fight, not to just win by points. So I don't agree with the open scoring. I think better judging definitely needs to happen in the sport, though.
Yup. I agree 100% because like a lot of people are saying how like if they knew what was going on, they changed their game plan, and then it's like at that point you're already losing. Like you shouldn't have to change your game plan. You should not leave it to the judges. That's what a lot of people are saying.
That's right.
So next, I got another phrase that a lot of people are debating right now. What do you think of the phrase, you got to beat the champion to win the bout? Like, you got to blow him out to win.
Yeah. You know, I don't know if I necessarily agree with that. I mean, I do believe that if it's a close fight, they're going to give it to the champ.
Yeah.
You definitely have to set yourself apart, and you have to prove that you have definitively beat him.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, there have been unanimous decision wins for the challenger against the champion before, you know, so it's not like if it goes to a decision you're going to lose. You got to take it to the champ for sure.
And then next, there's a bit of a controversy going around in the lightweight division after UFC 274. The champion, Charles Oliveira, well, now the ex-champion, he missed weight. Now the belt's up in the air. What is your opinion on the weight miss?
Well, I don't know if you know my history with Charles Oliveira, but I fought Charles, and he missed weight with me, too, by 9 pounds. So it was supposed to be a featherweight fight. He weighed in at 155. The fight almost didn't even happen. The commission, it was down in Mexico. The commission almost wasn't going to let it happen, but, you know, Reed Harris, who was actually the president of the WEC, he works for the UFC now, he came up to me. He was the one that broke the news to me that he missed weight. I was eating my lunch already after weigh-ins, and he came up in the restaurant and sat down and was like, listen, I just want to tell you, you know, Charles missed weight. I don't think the commission's going to let the fight happen. I was like, no way. I'm like, go back and tell him it's happening. Like, we're going to fight tomorrow, and that's it. So, luckily, they let it go through, and I submitted him, and he got what he deserved for missing weight there. But it's definitely it seems like it's a problem for this guy.
Yeah.
because I don't think I was the first time he missed weight either.
No, I think he missed weight 4 times.
Yeah,
at
he's a
featherweight.
chronic weight misser, so he needs to get that fixed. And I think it's good that they stripped the belt from him because of that, because he's not taking this seriously, obviously. So he had plenty of time to make weight.
Yep.
I don't know the whole details of it. I know there was maybe he was like on weight on his scale, but not the official.
That's what everyone was saying.
But still, that's still no excuse. Like I use my own scale every time too, and the first thing I would do is I'd check my weight on my scale and then check on the official scale and figure out the difference. So if I'm a half a pound, if the official scale is a half pound heavier than my scale, I make sure that I'm a half pound under on my scale. So, just little things like that. Be professional.
Yeah, so what a lot of people were saying, like, something was messed up with the official scale, like, the night before, but then the officials came out and said that they changed the scales in the morning because they saw that there was, like, a half-pound difference between their scale and the official scale that you weigh in on, but they changed it, so, like, at that point, who's really to blame for them missing weight? Because he was trying to put it off on, like, oh, he weighed in the night before, he was good. Like, that's what all his coaches were saying, that's what he was saying, but at the end of the day, you still missed weight. And, like, they gave him an hour to lose the last half a pound, and he came in at the exact same amount of weight.
Yeah.
So it's like, at that point, it's kind of more his fault than anyone. Like, not even at that point. Like, the whole thing, you shouldn't leave it to this chance of I'm half a pound over.
Right.
With the belt now being vacant at 155, what do you think the fight should be for the belt?
Oh, it should be Oliveira against who's the number 1 contender right now.
Dustin. But he beat Dustin. He beat the numbers 1, 2, and 4.
It'd be the next. Who's number 3? Is it
Islam.
Islam Makhachev? I think that should be the fight. I think it should be Islam and okay, I just blanked on his name. Charles Oliveira. Yeah. Don't get punched in the head for 13 years, kids. That's what happens. I think it should be Islam and Charles Oliveira.
Yeah.
I think that'd be a great fight too, because Islam's a hell of a wrestler, and Charles Oliveira is obviously dangerous on the ground. So I think that'd be a good one for everyone to watch.
Yep, I agree. So that's all I got about like the current state of MMA. Not much going on. But next I want to transition to a game I like to call 5 and 5, where I'll name like the top 5 fighters in your weight class, but like now your old weight class.
Okay.
And you just give your opinion on them like in like 5 minutes or so,
Yeah.
for all 5. So and the number 4 ranked guy is currently Calvin Kattar.
Calvin Kattar, yeah, he's great. He's got good hands. He's a good wrestler, well-rounded, tough guy. I've never seen him really be blown out by anybody. I mean, Max did a great job fighting him. I was actually really surprised at how well Max did against him.
Yeah.
But Kattar is, I fought him, and he was actually a very respectful guy and good guy, good fighter.
And then up next we got Yair Rodriguez.
Yeah, Yair's another guy that I know pretty well. We went on some press tours in Mexico together, and I like his style. I like how flashy he is and the stuff that he throws. He's very athletic. And who can't like him after that elbow that he knocked out Korean Zombie
Oh, yeah,
with?
that was brutal.
It was crazy.
With 1 second left in the
1
fifth
second.
round.
Latest knockout in UFC history.
Oh, yeah. Nuts. We got Brian Ortega at number 2.
Brian Ortega is another tough dude, man. Almost too tough for his own good, where he just keeps coming.
Oh, yeah.
I think it was the fight at Holloway, right, where he had the swollen eye and they had to stop the fight.
Yep.
He's got no quitting him. He's got one of those, tough Mexican kid from California. He's got a big heart, and it shows in the octagon.
Oh, yeah. In his 2 title fights, he may have lost, not greatly, but like,
he almost
lost,
had
but-
Volkanovski a couple
Oh, yeah.
times in that fight. I was like,
With
I
that
almost jumped
mounted
out of my
guillotine?
seat. The mounted guillotine, and I think he had him in a triangle too at some point.
Then he had the triangle later in that same round.
Yeah.
Like, let's just say I really wish I was recording my reaction.
Yeah.
Because I've never jumped so high in a fight when, like, it was out of nowhere.
I know.
Because he caught the kick, lands the cross, and then immediately, like, you blink and he was on top of him with that guillotine.
He's slick on the ground.
Oh,
Ortega's real slick.
Then we got Max Holloway.
Max Holloway is, a people's champ. Everybody loves to see Max go in there and fight. He always puts on a show, whether he's pointing to the ground and banging it out with his opponent or talking to the, to the commentators while he's dodging punches. He's another guy that puts on a good show for the fans, and everybody appreciates that.
Yeah, that was crazy, though, when he was fighting Calvin. He pointed, like, he was listening to the commentators
And still
all fighting.
slipping punches at
And
the
he
same
goes,
time.
I'm the best boxer. And he's dodging, goes, count him up.
Yeah.
As, like, it's going whizzing right past his face.
Yeah.
Always crazy. Now we move on to the champion, Alexander Volkanovski.
I said earlier, this is just a guy that gets better every time I watch him fight. and talk about toughness and grit. I mean,
Yeah.
some of those positions, you put any other champ in some of those positions, like that mounted guillotine or the triangle, and they're tapping. I mean, it was tight, but this guy has no give up in him.
It's almost like he doesn't need to breathe.
Exactly, yeah. Tough Australian. So I enjoy watching him fight, and he just looks better and better every time.
Oh, yeah. So that concludes 5 and 5. Next, I just want to ask some questions, kind of pick your brain a little bit, just get to know you.
Sure.
So, what's your favorite movie of all time?
Growing up, I already mentioned some of them, like all those 90s Jean-Claude Van Damme movies really got me loving martial arts and Bruce Lee movies. And I'm also a huge fan of like gangster movies. So Goodfellas, Casino, Scarface, all those are you put on a gangster movie and I'm always down to watch it. So I'd say that genre. It's hard to pick one favorite one. Probably Scarface, me being half Cuban, I got to pick that one.
Up next, we got, what's your favorite pastime?
Hanging out with my family, riding my Harley, and playing with my dogs probably,
Oh, yeah.
Big dog person.
Yeah. Then we got, what is, like, your favorite saying to live by? Like, what is one saying that you tell yourself?
Hard work beats talent when talent refuses to work hard. I think that's kind of, I was growing up in sports. I was never like the best, the top. I was very good. I was usually one of the best guys on every one of my teams. But it's not because I was born with that natural talent. It's because I worked my ass off to get it. That's just something for everybody to know. Sometimes these people that are born with God-given talent, they usually waste it because it comes so easy to them. They don't have to work for it. They don't train hard.
Exactly.
So I think that's a model that I've lived by. Going back to some of those gangster movies, if anybody knows A Bronx Tale, the worst thing in life is wasted talent.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
And then next I want to know, what's your favorite sport to watch, preferably other than MMA?
Oh, man. I'd probably say if it's not a fighting sport, baseball would probably be a close second. I'm not a huge sports guy when it leaves the realm of fighting, though.
Yeah.
Like, if it's not boxing or MMA, and even if you quiz me on, like, players on the Sox team and stuff, I may know a couple names. I won't even know what position they play, but I do enjoy going to watch a good baseball game.
Then we got, who's your favorite fight, or what's your favorite fight of all time? Like, your favorite fight to watch?
Yeah, man, there have been a few really good ones. There was, I remember one that stands out was Dan Henderson versus Shogun Rua.
Oh, yeah.
I remember that when I was at a Buffalo Wild Wings watching it. I just remember, like, jumping out of my seat every 10 seconds when somebody got knocked down. So that was one that I remember a lot. That was a really good fight.
Oh, yeah. Dan Henderson, that dude is crazy.
Yeah.
Then we got, who's your favorite fighter of all time?
So when I was younger, I was really into Vitor Belfort. This was like when I was younger. Old Vitor that had the traps up to his ears, like just looked like a monster, and his hands were so fast.
Right out of a horror movie.
Yeah. I remember Tank Abbott used to be one of my favorite fighters too when I was younger, and then they fought each other, and Vitor I don't know if you remember the fight, but it started and Vitor basically ran across the cage throwing 1-2s and like put Abbott out like really quick. So after that he became one of my favorites. And then Uriah Faber was my favorite fighter when I started the sport, actually. Like a fighter that I wanted to be like.
Oh, yeah, all great. Vitor Belfort, man. And now he's starting to box again.
Yeah.
He had his fight against Evander Holyfield. I think that was early this year, last year, something. I don't know. But, yeah, no, it's crazy to see, like, all these old guys, like, not old guys, but all the legends of the sport, like, still fighting. Like Anderson Silva, he fought, like, last weekend.
Yeah, and he's doing good.
Oh, yeah. Up next, what is your favorite knockout of all time?
Knockout that I've seen?
Yes. Or your own, both work.
Man, the another Dan Henderson knockout against Michael Bisping was just one of the most gnarly ones that I've seen.
Yeah.
That one was bad.
The Hendo bomb.
Yeah, and I mean recently the one with Michael Chandler and Tony Ferguson was. I mean, I was worried for Ferguson for a minute there because he was motionless on the ground for a while.
He said that he doesn't remember a single, like he remembers walking out for the second round.
Yeah.
Then he remembers waking up like on his way to the ambulance.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Always nuts. That's the scary part of the sport, like, because a lot of the times people, like, some brutal knockouts, they're sitting on the floor for a good, like, minute or two, and you're just like, what the hell is going on?
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's always scary to see.
It is. Part of the sport. You got to know the risk you're taking.
And up next, I got some upcoming fights, and I just want to get your opinion on them, who you think is going to win and why.
Okay.
So starting out the list, we got Glover versus Jerry.
Who's he fighting?
Glover Teixeira versus Jerry Prohaska
Oh, okay.
for the light heavyweight belt.
Yeah, Glover, he came back and won the belt and really surprised me, and I think he's going to take it. I think he's kind of reemerged. He's been around for a while. Wins here, a couple losses here and there, but you see these guys, like, the sport almost moves in cycles where you'll think you'll be on bottom and then all of a sudden you're back on top again, and you can ride that wave for a while. So I think Glover's going to take that one.
Yeah, like Anthony Smith was saying, like, Jerry's good. He's got the knockout. He's unorthodox. But when you put their skills next to each other, Glover's much more well-rounded, and he thinks he edges him out in all, like, the very good, like, places that need it. Like the being accurate on your strikes and then the submission game and takedowns. Glover edges him out in all those. So it's like that's probably how he's got the edge in this fight. He's still a pretty big underdog. I think he's like plus 250.
Wow.
So
that's crazy.
You never know.
Yeah.
Then we got the rematch of Zhang Weili and Joanna Jędrzejczyk.
Who took the first one?
Zhang. It was the best women's fight in history.
It was Weili, right?
Yeah,
Weili
it was
took
Zhang
the first
Weili,
one.
yeah.
Yeah. Man, that's a tough one. I mean, I'd probably think Weili will take it again. Joanna's tough, though. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if she won it.
Yeah.
Either way, I'm not. I don't have a dog in that fight, but Joanna Jędrzejczyk is super talented. She's. I mean, when she was on top, I didn't think anybody was going to beat her, to be honest. But Weili came around and did it, and I think she might do it again.
Yeah. The only thing with Joanna, she's been out for a while.
Yeah.
She hasn't fought since their first fight, and since then, Zhang's been on. She fought Rose twice. I think she had a fight with Just Khan. No, that was before. But she had quite a few fights in that time. Yeah, she's
been a lot more active.
Yeah, so you never know with, like, that ring rust.
Yeah, ring rust, or maybe she even went back and fixed what was wrong.
Exactly.
Some fighters take that time to go back to the gym and fix their mistakes. So
she's been in the gym, though. Like, she's been posting on Instagram how she's been in the gym since that fight.
Yeah.
So it's going to be very interesting to see how it plays out this time.
See who shows up.
Then we got Calvin Kattar versus Josh Emmett.
That's two guys that I've both fought, two big hitters. So I think that's going to be a great fight. As far as who's going to take it, I might have to give the edge to Emmett just because I think his wrestling may be a little better than Kattar's. They both have heavy hands. I think Kattar has more crisp style boxing, like more combos, where Emmett is going to be throwing those loopy overhands and hooks. But if one of those land on Kattar, it could be lights out. So very super close fight. Could go either way. I think I'd give the edge to Emmett just because of the wrestling pedigree, though.
I agree. Like, wrestling, a lot of people, like, say it's the most dominant because it is the most dominant. So whoever's got the edge in that is always very helpful. It's the
only style in MMA that allows you to dictate where the fight will take place, right? Like, you could say that, what about a jiu-jitsu guy? But jiu-jitsu doesn't focus on takedowns or takedown defense, right? So if a wrestler wants to fight standing, they use their takedown defense to keep it standing, right?
Yeah.
If they want it on the ground, they use their takedown offense to take it down to the ground. So it's the only style in MMA that allows you to dictate where the fight goes.
Oh, yeah. Then we got Donald Cerrone versus Joe Luizon.
Oh, Joe Lozon. Yeah, that's going to be a good one, too. Two veterans. I really like this fight. If they opened up a legacy division like this where it was all fights like this, I might come back, man, But I'd really like to see Cerrone ride off into the sunset with a win. He's been one of those guys that's been in the sport for so long and put in so much work.
Yeah.
I think he said he wants to get to 50 fights and then call it a career.
Yeah,
so,
something like that is what he's been saying.
I'd like to see him end it with a win.
Oh, yeah. Then we got Sean O'Malley versus Pedro Munoz.
I just want to see someone crack the shit out of Sean O'Malley. I'm just sick of that guy, man. I'm going Munoz for.
We were saying Sean O'Malley versus Pedro Munoz.
Yeah, and I was saying that I'd love to see Sean O'Malley get his ass whooped. Just had enough of his mouth. Even though, thinking about his fight stylistically against Pedro Munoz, I think Sean O'Malley, he's actually a really good fighter. He's very dynamic. He's got crisp striking, very unorthodox too, and he's fast, and he's always faking, seeing what you're going to do, and I think he actually might take Munoz out, but I'm going to be rooting for Munoz.
Then we got Sean Strickland versus Alex Pereira.
Man, I got to go with Pereira. I mean, everybody's been talking about him. How he knocked out Stylebender twice in kickboxing. So I'm waiting to see him get tested a little bit, and I think this would be a good one because Strickland is one of those guys that's going to bring it to him.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a good fight, but I think Pereira's, if Pereira's everything everybody says he is, then he should be able to take this one.
Yeah. So what do you think of like Sean Strickland, like in general? Because he kind of just says what's on his mind all the time. Like,
I don't know. I don't know what to think of him. I've never met him. I never really talked to him. I've met people who have like coached him and stuff, and they've like kicked him out of their gym, and just because he's a little nuts. Like he's said some crazy things on social media.
Oh, yeah. He's very unfiltered.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if he needs some help mentally or what, but from the stuff he says, he may.
Yeah. So up next we got Volkanovski versus Holloway 3.
That's gonna be a good fight. The first two were pretty close. The decisions could have went either way.
Yeah.
And I think the fights may keep ending up like that unless somebody finishes the other person.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping for just a definitive win out of somebody here, like a finish, whether it's by KO or submission or whatever, and then they can kind of move on from each other and go about their separate ways and fight some other people.
Now, do you feel like if Volkanovski wins for a third time, they ever have a chance of meeting again, or do you think that's like the end of it?
I think the only way they'd have a chance of meeting again is if, Holloway goes back and starts putting contender after contender away and is just still the number one guy to fight.
Yeah, it's sort of like with Robert Whittaker and Israel Adesanya. Like, Whittaker got rid of Gastelum, Till, Jared Cannonier, all on his way to a second shot. So, like, it all depends on what happens.
Yeah.
So. Speaking of Jared Cannonier, up next we got Israel Adesanya versus Jared Cannonier.
I think Israel is just going to take it. I think he's just too down. He's another one of these guys that's kind of younger and gets better every fight, and I think Israel's going to take that one.
And then we got the rematch of Brandon Moreno and Kai Kara France for the interim flyweight title.
Yeah, that's going to be. This guy Kai Kara France came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Like when he fought Cody Garbrandt, I thought Garbrandt was going to take him out. He ended up taking out Cody, and he's just on the rise right now. So we'll see what Moreno does. Moreno definitely has to go back and fix what he did wrong in that first fight, and he can definitely do it because this is another young kid that's still improving as he goes along in his career, and he's another tough kid too, and. So we'll see what happens, man. But it should be a good fight.
Yeah, it seems like Kai Kara France did because he was riding 2 losses before he fought Cody, and then I feel like that. What? Yeah. We watched that live together, and
I think everybody was.
Yeah, my cousin, he's a very big Cody Garbrandt fan, so. He was like, Cody, what the hell are you like? He's screaming at the TV, like how my dad used to scream at the football games at the TV. He's like, what are you doing? Get up, move. Like, it was the funniest thing. But and then Kai Kara France, then he fought Askar Askarov, who was undefeated at the time. So he's riding a very good wave of momentum into this fight. While Brandon, he's coming off the loss to Figgy in their third fight. So then we got the rematch of Juliana Pena and Amanda Nunes.
Man, that was another one that surprised the heck out of me. I thought Amanda was just going to blow through her, through Juliana Pena, but that just goes to show you that nobody's untouchable, and if you believe in yourself, like Juliana Pena, you asked her before the fight, she truly believed she was going to win that fight. So confidence is king, and now Amanda got woken up, and we'll see if the Lioness comes back. I think it's really up to Amanda. She's proved so much in the sport. It's like when you get to a point or to a height like Amanda reaches, it's almost like you've had so much fulfillment already. This could be now her
decline.
We'll see, but only she knows what's gonna happen. But we'll see on fight night.
Now, looking in at what's going on with Amanda Nunes and Juliana Pena, obviously they're coaching the Ultimate Fighter right now. But what did you make of her leaving American Top Team?
That one kind of surprised me. I actually used to train with Amanda. She used to train with us at MMA
really?
Masters. Yeah. When she first came from Brazil, she was training with our team, and I think it's because when she left us, it was after a loss, right?
Yeah.
And now she left ATT after a loss. I don't know if some of these fighters think they put the blame on their team and their coaches or something for if they lose a fight, and they think that going to a new place or a new team is going to fix that, and that's not always the case. But I don't know all the inside story about her coaches there or how she was being trained or anything like that. She could have had a bunch of yes men around her. Maybe she knew it and she wanted to change it. So it could be a change for the better or for the worse, and we'll find out.
Yeah, 'cause she isn't like she's not the only fighter to have left American Top Team recently. Like Colby Covington, he left American Top Team. Nunes now left American Top Team, and like a handful of other ones did. So who knows what's going on over there?
I've had training partners that have gone from our gym, from MMA Masters, who've gone to Top Team and then who have come back. Because at Top Team, if you're not one of those top UFC guys, you're basically used as a body. You can say all you want, but just being used as a sparring partner isn't necessarily going to get you better. You need coaches that are going to be focused on you, that are helping you fix your mistakes, that are helping you improve and giving you new techniques to work on. You just can't go train with a bunch of good guys and then all of a sudden get good. So you got to have the proper coaching behind the right training partners as well.
And like you were saying how she would leave after a loss, like what my cousin always tells me, he goes, if you win, that's on your team. If you lose, it's on you. And that's something that I like to think about every time. I got something that if I lose, I don't want to blame anyone because I know it's on me.
Yeah.
So that's something that I feel like a lot of people gotta think about.
Yep.
But that wraps up everything I got for you. Is there anything you want to say to people watching?
Oh man, we went over a lot today, so go watch those gangster movies. If you didn't know what I was talking about, you'll thank me later.
Well, yeah, thank you so much again for doing the interview with me. It does mean a lot, so thank you so much. SmokeMMA, check it out, and make sure to watch another video.
See you guys later.